In the heart of Gurgaon, amidst the bustling development of DLF Phase 3, a troubling issue has come to light. DTCP has recently recommended that FIRs be registered against the owners of 50 EWS plots who have been accused of violating building plan norms by constructing additional floors without permission, covering the entire ground area, and erecting structure without approval from the authorities. These are not just legal violations. They pose significant risks to structural stability during earthquakes or other natural calamities. The added floors increase the population density beyond what was originally planned, overflowing utilities like water supply, sewage systems, and electricity grids. This unplanned expansion can also compromise emergency access routes, making it difficult for rescue and relief operations to be carried out efficiently in the time of crisis. Moreover, the residents may not be fully aware that their actions are illegal and jeopardize not only their safety, but also their neighbors as well. Hi, my name is Ridhima Kapoor, currently studying in grade 11 at Heritage Experiential Learning School, Gurgaon. EWS is a concern between many, a concern that is unfamiliar to most. This matters to me as a person because I feel like I should be the voice of those who aren't aware. Focusing on economically weaker section aims to build a fairer and a more prosperous society, giving everyone a chance to succeed and creating an inclusive economy for all. This approach benefits not just the communities, but all of society, making it more inclusive and resilient. It is both a privilege and a responsibility to ensure that all the voices are considered in the decision-making process of EWS. In this documentary, I will be interviewing developers, architects, channel partners, and EWS users. There are many stakeholders and they play different roles. For example, the first one being government agencies. They provide policies and make funds and guidelines. For example, the PMAY, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Number two, housing development authorities. They are responsible for construction, the allocations, and to make sure that the standards are being met. The third one being financial institutions. They are responsible for providing loans and for ensuring that there's a purchase of construction happening. The fourth one being private developers. They are responsible for executing construction work. Today, we have Roshi Chiller, director at the Landmark Group, one of the leading real estate developers in Gurgaon. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, I would like to ask you a few questions today. The first one being, at what stage do developers get involved in these EWS housing projects?
So for the EWC projects, developers typically get involved early on in the initial and planning phases, since it's essential to take into account what portion of the project will be assigned to EWS.
Okay. How are these EWS projects assigned?
So the assignment of the projects are typically through a lottery system, and this is either through joint developments. You work very closely with the government, and there's a bidding process. It's an RFP system that goes into place, and that's how the lottery works.
Okay. What are your opinions about the EWS policies that are there?
So I don't think there can be enough EWC policies, and the rigor and the discipline are involved because, in today's times, we need a lot of EWS housing. There's a shortage of it. So the policies are the ones that are in place are working, but we do need, I think, better assistance from the government in kind of implementing them.
And what is the mandate that these EWS policies are actually being followed or not?
What the mandate?
Yeah.
I think if as long as the developer and the government, whether it's a joint development, multiple stakeholder groups, as long as they're all working together, joint forces, I think the execution goes smoothly.
Okay. So what types of data and is being used for the EWS housing, and what is its usage?
So collecting data is essential at the beginning and also towards the end. And the foundational data that we need is getting the income levels, the occupation, the basic demographics that we need. And also towards the end of the project, you're using that data to kind of, that can be deduced for future projects and understanding the shortage of the EWS housing requirements.
Okay. How do you incorporate the feedback that is given by the EWS residents?
So that's also part of data collection, I would say. There's a regular loop of feedback being collected, and how that can be incorporated is many ways. You can always act upon those recommendations and kind of interact regularly with the community, different engagement activities. And from a developer perspective, what really matters is that you are acting upon it. So if there is, let's say, some complaint about parking issues, that's being actually solved.
How do you monitor the correct allocations?
So we have different mechanisms in place to do that. We have checks and balances where we're ensuring that wherever the allotment by the lottery system was assigned initially, that has been cross-checked by our team with the right people. And so that's how we keep like a system in check, basically ensuring that the end-to-end allocation is done in a proper manner. Yeah.
Okay. And do you treat the development of the EWS different from regular?
Yeah, no. So there's a misconception, and widely thought of that EWS housing standards should be implemented differently from how the regular projects are implemented. But we have the same quality standards, the surveillance, the exact kind of due diligence that we adapt for our regular development projects. Same we do for EWS, because you have to understand that the quality of the development is the brand of the developer, and that's at stake, whether it's an EWS project or not. And when it comes to housing, security and surveillance, due diligence, the proper construction quality, right, of the house that you're going to be living in, it matters equally for any kind of income level, occupation level. It doesn't matter what kind of product it is when it comes to housing. So we don't compromise on any quality standards. We also try to incorporate the same technology that we would have for our projects, the same innovation, and the same kind of manpower that we employ for our regular projects.
Okay. That would be the end of my questions. Thank you very, very much for taking out your time. This was very, very helpful.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Real estate channel partners play a crucial role in buying, selling, renting, or leasing properties. They act as intermediate agents between buyers and sellers, landlords and tenants, etc. They help navigate complexities between the real estate transactions. Today, we have Mr. Sandeep Arora from Earthsea Enterprises, a leading channel partner who assists in sales. Hi.
Hi Ridhima, very good evening. How are you?
All good. How are you doing?
All very well.
Okay. So today I would like to ask you a few questions. My first question being, how familiar are you with the government's housing schemes on EWS?
Okay, so to be very honest, partially.
Okay.
So we know what are the schemes, but as I said, we are not really focusing onto it because of other segments which are more rewarding. So I'm aware that we have the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Awas Yojana, there's a Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and then there's the EWS scheme.
Okay.
And there are certain conditions in terms of economic criteria which need to be met for people who are eligible. They have to be below poverty line, and then there are some other conditions of not owning another house anywhere else in country, and then there is some incentives around housing loan which they can avail in terms of subsidized rate of interest.
Okay.
So we are aware of some of these details, but that's not really the core of our activities.
Okay. My next question is, in your opinion, are the current EWS housing schemes actually effective? Why or why not?
Okay, so I'll take it with a pinch of salt.
Okay.
From a government perspective, the schemes are well designed, but on the ground, what really happens is that there are limited set of beneficiaries who are aware. So awareness is lacking, especially in the segment it is intended for. So people who are below poverty line, many of them are not aware of these schemes, and not much effort has been made to make them aware and understand these schemes. So I don't think, in reality, a lot of people have the deserving people have benefited from that.
Okay.
Small section, yes. Majority, no.
Okay. What services do you provide specifically for the EWS?
As I said, it's not really the core of our activities, but in the limited set of people we encounter who would be below poverty line, we generally provide them an advisory around whenever there is a new scheme being launched, because these are far and few. Okay, so any developer, when they launch a housing project, they have to compulsorily launch a EWS scheme as well. So as and when it happens, we advise the set of people we are in touch with about the launch of the scheme and the process to fill the form. So it's all online. But then I think that's about it. We really don't go much beyond that.
Okay. How do you identify potential beneficiaries from the EWS?
No scientific method so far.
Okay.
I said it's a fringe activity for us.
Hmm.
So it's mostly people who we are aware,
Hmm.
and we spread the word around, a bit
Okay.
of WhatsApp and all of that. So it's more informal than really a formal structured process.
Okay. My next question is, what challenges do you face when dealing with the EWS housing schemes?
So the biggest challenge is around identifying the beneficiaries.
Okay.
And then also making them aware of the process and getting their documents completed. Because in my experience, there are a lot of people we know who could benefit, who deserve to be benefiting from the scheme, but many of them don't have a BPL card, right? So the process of getting a BPL card is also cumbersome, and hence they are not able to take benefit of some of these government schemes. So my sense is if that's something which could be made easy by the government and the departments, a lot more people can benefit from these schemes.
Okay. How do you educate the potential beneficiaries about the EWS housing schemes?
Okay, so I think there should be effort from all the entities involved. So government has to play a major role. My sense is some of these schemes should be promoted a little more effectively, especially the vernacular language. Whenever such scheme comes up, there should be effort, especially some newspaper ads, some other mediums through which at least the potential benefits can get to know that this is option available for them. Also, see, in most real estate, otherwise, if I would talk about non-EWS category, the channel partners or the intermediaries play a very important role in educating and consulting and advising the buyers. But here, because there is not much incentive, so as a channel partner, I am not even aware if there is any brokerage or any incentive attached to enabling people to opt for these schemes. So there's no motivation for us. So I think if there could be a motivation provided to the channel partners in some incentive or some brokerage, they can also add to the benefit of the efforts of educating the potential beneficiaries.
Okay, that comes to my next question. What are the most common concerns or questions that you receive from the EWS beneficiaries?
So the first thing is they're not aware, so they want to understand. Then there's a fear, especially a lot of these people are not educated, not formally educated, and they don't have an ability to even sometimes understand the form. So they get scared by seeing the form and they have a fear कि आप मेरे से साइन करवा रहे हो, क्या होगा, कुछ I'm not going to lose something out of, rather than benefiting, they have a fear they'll lose something out of signing so many forms. So there is that block. I think that's the biggest challenge we face in terms of educating and gaining trust of this category of people, this segment of people, to benefit from these schemes.
Okay. Can you also share a success story where your assistance significantly helped the EWS beneficiaries?
Yes, so one of my drivers, he was wanting to own a house in Gurgaon, and otherwise he would not have really been capable of buying a house in Gurgaon. But in one of the schemes, we helped him fill the form, and finally he got the house. So till today he's happy.
That's
and
great.
He's got a home in Gurgaon.
Okay. How can the government improve on the implementation of the EWS housing schemes to make them more accessible?
Okay, so a couple of suggestions. One thought will be, I think there should be a central portal about it. So there could be an information portal where all the information is available, the steps, the process, the eligibility, and all those things. And all the schemes which are being launched, they could be made available on that portal. So that becomes a single source of information for both the potential beneficiaries as well as people who could then enable some of these beneficiaries. And that's step one. Second, as I mentioned earlier in one of my responses, that if there could be some incentive to the channel partners to promote these schemes, because if they're making effort, obviously they'll need to be rewarded. So there's some incentive for them. I think both the developers and the channel partners would make more efforts to educate more beneficiaries. To me, these two things could really make a big difference.
Okay. Coming to my last question, what additional support do you think the property dealers need from the government to better the facility of the EWS?
Almost the same answer as my previous answer, which is information portal, some incentive, and maybe third thing could be the process could be made a little easier in terms of getting the BPL card and other things. I think if all these three things get taken care of, this could lead to a better involvement.
Okay. That is all from my end.
Thank you, Radhima. It's a lovely project. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Architects are professionals who designed buildings and other structures, integrating both artistic and technical aspects to create a functional and aesthetically pleasing environment. Today, we have Mr. Saurabh Dalal with us, who is a managing director at DPA. Hi, sir. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. Thanks for calling me here.
So, I would like to ask you a few questions based on EWS. The first question is, can you describe the typical construction process for EWS housing projects?
Okay, so I think I'll take a step back. The reason why EWS housing is done is because it's mandatory.
Okay.
So whenever a developer does a housing project, and this applies to both, I know at least about Delhi and Gurgaon, they are required to provide 15% of the total FSI that they have. Equivalent to that, they need to provide EWS housing. So different developers choose to do it differently. And it's also depends a lot upon the constraints of the site.
Okay.
For example, one of the projects that we were doing, the plot where they could do the EWS was actually a small plot. So we did a high rise. So we actually did a 24 or 25 story EWS housing, which is not typical because the minute you go high rise, the cost goes up and a lot of other costs go up. You need to provide elevators and things like that. But as I said, for the developer, it made more sense to incur that cost rather than try and spread it out. So I think it's really horses for courses. It really depends on what the requirements of the project are. Because let's not forget that the EWS housing is built by the developer. In the case of Haryana, it gets handed over to the Haryana Housing Board.
Right.
And they get a very limited return for that, the developer.
Okay.
And then the Haryana Housing Board disposes it. They have different ways of disposing of those units.
Okay. What stages are involved from planning to construction of EWS housing?
So, like any other housing project, all the stages are concerned. So, you start with concept design, you go to schematic, design development, and then construction drawing. So, it follows the same stages as the rest of the project does. The only difference is that probably one doesn't spend as much time on each of these stages because it's more cookie cutter. I mean, it's not, when you're designing the actual main housing units, you really need to think about the market, the way it's going. But here there are norms, there are norms on what the size of the house of the EWC unit needs to be. There are also norms on what you need to provide within that area.
Okay.
So it's really, I would say it's really a cookie cutter solution.
Right.
It's the same stages, but it's just that you may spend lesser time on those stages than you would in the main project.
Okay. What construction and material methods are used for this EWS?
So I think again, it's largely dependent on the solution.
Okay.
I mentioned to you a little while ago about this 25-story structure that we were doing.
Right.
So the rest of the project was also, using what we call Maivan technology, which is sort of repetitive shuttering material for the rest of the project. So on this project also we used exactly the same technology. So I don't think the technology changes. What does change is the level of specifications. So, when you're doing an EWS housing, obviously the finishes that the developer will use will be of a much lower spec compared to the... so I think they do a bare minimum, which really will meet the requirements of the authorities. So, the authorities have also laid down certain minimum standards.
Okay.
I think the developer will do just about that because, as I said, they are going to get a fixed return for this. So, obviously the money that they get back doesn't even really cover the cost of construction.
Right.
But it's really something that is just built into the project cost, that you need to build these many units and you will spend so much on it. You will make money on the rest of the project. Obviously, you won't make any money on this. In fact, you'll lose some money on this.
Right. My next question is, how do the construction norms for EWS housing differ from other residential plots?
So you see the residential blocks, the normal residential blocks, there are 2 or 3 parameters. They dictate the ground coverage, they dictate the FSI that you're allowed to build. In many areas, there'll be a height restriction, which is more based on the airport authority clearance that you have for the project. So, and then, the slate is sort of wide open for the architect to use their creativity and, to really deliver a product which is different from obviously what some other developers may be doing. So in the normal project, in the rest of the project, there are really just certain, I would say, planning parameters that apply, but no really aesthetic parameters. when you do the EWS project on that particular site, I think the primary the rider really is the cost.
Okay.
So the developer is wanting to spend the least. Very often, if we don't have to go vertical, we would even restrict the EWS to just a ground plus 2 structure, because as per the law, if you go ground plus 3, then you need to start providing elevators.
Okay.
So they don't even want to incur the cost of elevators. So if they're able to fulfill the 15% by doing ground plus 2, they would much rather do that.
Right. My next question is, are there any challenges that are associated with these particular norms?
No, I think the challenges are that, obviously, as I said, it's something that you build, and because they don't really use the same spec. So, I mean, I don't totally agree with it, but a lot of developers will try to relegate the EWS block to a corner of the site where it's not seen.
Right.
Also, you have to remember that there is no control that the developer has on who's going to come into that block and who are going to be the residents of the EWS block. So it's a bit of a social thing. Again, I think not really something that I totally agree with, but so very often the developer will really build a wall around the EWS block, which will not permit the residents of that block to really go and use the facilities in the rest of the site. For example, if there's a swimming pool, and they would not have access to the club and other common facilities that the developer is providing for the rest of the residents.
Right.
So, in fact, we were doing a project recently, and we were evaluating a project for a developer, and he was talking about whether he really needs to build that wall, and I said, tomorrow, if Dawood Ibrahim gets a unit in this unit, maybe you don't want him to come into the club and use the club with everybody else. So that's why they try to really segregate this development from the rest of the club.
Okay. How do you ensure compliance with these government-approved architectural plans for EWS housing?
Well, as I said, the norms for EWS are not very different from the others, except that there are one or two differences. One is that, if I remember correctly, you need to restrict the size of the unit between 25 and 40 square meters. So you can't really build bigger than that. You have to make sure that each unit has its own. You can have common toilets, but otherwise you have to have a pantry. And they call it a drying area, which is mainly would mean you have to provide one balcony with each of the units, so that they're able to sort of inhabitants are able to dry their clothes. The only difference really in the norms for the EWS units are that there is the size cannot really needs to be between 25 and 40 square meters, and you need to provide certain facilities in the unit.
Okay.
Besides that, there are no other differences. Delhi has a very interesting rule with the EWS units. So what they say is that out of the 15% that you set aside for the EWS, 7.5% needs to be handed over back to the government. So 50% has to go back, and 7.5% you can actually they call them CSP units, which what a lot of developers are now doing is that they will provide that the other 7.5% that they're not handing over, they'll attach it to the main housing project, Or what they'll do is that, like on a particular floor, if you have 4 units, 2 of them will have a CSP unit attached to them. So in that, so the developer is actually able to sell that. So what was originally a 3-bedroom house will now become a 4-bedroom house, You have to show it has to have its own separate entrance and everything, but normally they build a secondary entrance which connects it to the unit also.
Okay.
So actually in Delhi, you're able to then, actually cash in on that 50%, but you only hand over 50% of the units that you're supposed to build. So it's only 7.5% which is being handed over.
Okay. What improvements would you suggest in these kind of norms? Anything that you can...
Well, I think this is basically a social issue, you know.
Right.
I mean, I think that rather than, you know, building a block and make somebody feel that they are an outcast, which is what you're actually doing by putting
Right.
them inside. You know, you're putting them, you're building a wall around them. So I would suggest, I mean, my thought would be that it would be better for the government to allocate certain pieces of land where any developer who has to build, you know, you go and actually make a development out of that. It may be lower specs, but at least it becomes a community. And you're not, you know, building a block within, you know, a very, very fancy development and then making the people feel that there's something wrong with them. You know?
Right.
So I think that it would be nicer if the developer was made to spend that money, but where the whole thing becomes a community of its own, you know, and it'll have its own function. It can have its own clubhouse. It can have a small, you know, a banquet hall. It can have so people can, you know, hold functions and marriages and things like that there. And actually, it's a different level of community, but it's a community,
Right.
you know. So it's not, you know, you're not ostracizing a certain section of society.
Okay. What measures can be taken to prevent these illegal modification or construction in terms of EWS housing?
So I think, you know, it's not EWS housing. I mean, there are lots of illegal construction happening on the full project.
Right.
So whether it's the EWS housing or whether it's the main construction, a lot of developers used to, you know, not build absolutely by the law. And there used to be setback infringements, there used to be FSI infringement, height infringements. But I would say one thing, that, you know, now this has definitely come down a lot because, you know, a lot of developers operated with the attitude that, you know, money can buy anything and that, you know, they can get away with murder, so to speak. And they used to take a lot of I mean, they would do a lot of things which were illegal, but fortunately the government has started clamping down on them and on this sort of activities. And I think the architects also have become far more, I think, you know, conscious about this, because you see what the bylaw says is that if the developer if there is a plan which has been sanctioned and which has something which is still illegal in it, the person who is sanctioning it, he is not held responsibility. The developer is held responsible.
Okay.
So I think now developers are also being very much more particular with the architects that you need to advise us what we can do and what we can't do, because they also don't want to sort of land up in jail, you know,
Right.
for the wrong reasons. So I think this has definitely helped in bringing down the sort of the extent of illegal construction. There are certain things which are, you know, where you can pay penalties for even after you've constructed, and you can pay the penalty and get that legalized. So a lot of developers, you know, take that into account while designing. Like, you know, you could build 5% more and you pay a penalty for it. So they'll sort of won't show it in the sanction plan, but it'll be there as part of the design. And then once the plan is, you go for the occupation certificate, they'll pay the penalty and legalize it.
Okay. How do you think the authorities should address the issue of illegal construction?
As I said, I think there are already fines in place. We've seen examples which have been highly publicized in the recent past, where a whole building was brought down. So the developer gets the message that, you know, nothing is beyond the law. Just because it's been built, that doesn't mean it's going to get, you know, regularized in any way.
Right.
So I think I think when some of these things are done with the publicity that it's done, the buying public also becomes more conscious. So they are also a lot more careful when they're buying a unit, and you know, they also check that, you know, they don't just look at the catalog. They also check that the building that they're going to be living in does have proper sanctioned plans and is fully legal. So I think educating the public and educating the the developers, as well as publicizing some of these things when something is done wrongly, so that everybody gets aware about the consequences of illegal construction.
Okay. That's all from my side. Thank you very, very much for your time. This was very informative.
Thank you.
Many different stakeholders and they all play different roles. The first one is government agencies. They are responsible to formulate policies, for example, the PMAY, which is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. The second one is housing developmental authorities. They are responsible to execute construction projects. The third one is financial institutions. They are responsible to provide loans. The fourth one and the final one is private developers. They execute the construction work. Today, we have Mr. Pankaj Bhat sir with us, who is the Managing Director at Whiteland Corporation.
Hi Ridhima,
Hi sir, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, good. So, I would like to ask you a few questions today about EWS. So, what is the current scenario of EWS?
So Ridhima, let me start by saying that you picked up a very important subject for your research, especially in a country like India, which is a developing country, and there are so many people, hundreds of thousands of people who are in the category which you are terming as economically weaker section. So it's very pertinent to our country, and this is an issue the policy planners, right from the time when the country got independence, it has been one of the most highest priority areas for the governments and the policy think tanks. So one way of ensuring, the indirect way of ensuring that everybody has a roof on their head, a home on their head, is to have general economic growth.
Okay.
And that's the indirect way of and more sustainable way of having people coming to a stage where they can afford to build their own homes. As the economy does well, their livelihoods improve. And let me tell you, government also realizing that this will take too much time for the benefit. It will take too much time for the benefits of economic growth to percolate to the economically weaker section, so that they're lifted to a level where they can build their own homes. Policy planners thought that it is imperative to have a direct intervention.
Okay.
And directly have come out with policies which facilitate people in this segment, the economically weaker segment, to build their homes, expedite the process, not wait for the natural progression to happen. So yes, government has, if we talk about today, the central government has its guiding policies, and all the state governments work under that umbrella, the umbrella of the central government policies, but they also have their own state level policies.
Okay.
So what are these policies? How do they transfer the benefit to this segment? Well, one aspect of the policy is to facilitate availability of finance.
Okay.
Rather than giving out a subsidy or a dole-out, tell people that okay, we will. There are people who normal banks will not fund because they don't have access to the normal banking system if they have to invest in making the home. So special financial institutions have been set up by various state governments. The biggest them of all is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana.
Okay.
So this strategy, the first strategy, subsidizes making low-cost finance available to people who want to build their own homes.
Okay.
Once they have obtained a certificate from the state government that they fall under the EWS category, then the government gives a subsidy on the interest. So these institutions which are specially set up to give loans for making homes to this section, they will give you a loan, and government will subsidize 60%, 70% of the loan amount. The interest on the loan amount. For example, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana subsidizes 6.5% of the interest.
Okay.
If the interest rate is say 9.5%, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana will subsidize 6.5% out of it, which means that segment is able to first of all avail the loan, which no normal bank would have given because they don't have such income eligibility. They get the loan at a highly subsidized rate of 3.5%. As we are aware, the smaller town, tier 3 towns and tier 2 towns and rural areas, these people have access to loan only through traditional money lenders. And the interest rates are prohibitive. And poor people fall into debt trap. They used to fall into debt trap.
Okay.
While they took money to build their home. So government tackled this situation, which was plaguing the society. First of all, they shouldn't be going to a money lender to make a house, or they should not be selling some other asset or gold, family gold, to build a house.
Right.
So that indebtedness was a huge problem. So these banks have been, special financial institutions have been set up. The biggest one is set up under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and they make the loans available, like I said, and at a highly subsidized rate. The government gives the subsidy. So there's one tier of subsidy which the central government gives. So many state governments are supplementing that strategy. That is a strategy by giving further subsidy. So if the loan comes at 9.5%, central government will give 6.5%. State governments also chip in by giving, okay, we'll subsidize by 2%. So that household is able to get interest rate, virtually interest free loan, minuscule interest rate. And that's a huge thing. So it's better than a dole out because it also ensures some fiscal responsibility. People take the and misuse of funds. It prevents misuse of funds because it has to be eventually paid back. You know. So government also came out with another policy which was to empower the women in rural areas and tier 3 cities. Usually the society is male dominant. So it is easier to get a loan if this home under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and the subsidiary yojanas of the state governments, if the senior most lady of the household, if the house is under her name, it's much easier to get the loan. So government is also empowering the women under this scheme. So it is very well thought out scheme, and I think government has already delivered about 85. So this scheme started about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Under this scheme, government has already delivered close to 1 crore homes. 1 crore homes, and they've sanctioned about 2 lakh crore of funds have been sanctioned. So we sitting in urban centers are not aware of it. It doesn't touch our lives, but it's having a very big impact in the smaller towns, the rural areas. So many households are getting this thing. So this is one prong of the strategy. So government also, then the policymakers thought, let's have the concept of private-public participation to further elevate this problem, especially in the big urban centers. So most of the states, even the state of Haryana where we are sitting in right now, they have policies wherein when a developer is granted a license, government mandates that certain percentage of the homes you can build in that residential license which is granted have to be made for the economically weaker section. And some criteria have been prescribed. For example, in Gurgaon, if you're doing a residential condominium project, of all the homes you make, 15% have to be reserved for the economically weaker section. And there is a criteria in terms of area. The size has to be 200 square feet. And those people who are eligible under the EWS, different states have different criteria. I think Haryana has a household income of less than 8 lakh rupees a month. So once you get that certificate, only those people who have the EWS certificate can avail of the scheme. And just to ensure that there is no black marketing and misuse of the policy, the private sector has to make these homes and hand them over to a central pool, which is managed by the state government. The state government has its own portal where these people put in their applications and they're allotted basis on first come first serve dropouts. And then the further policy is to misuse that these homes are not then further sold for speculative purposes. There is a restriction on the time period during which these people cannot sell. So this public-private participation. So government could have well asked the developers to give some money for it. And then government could have used that money to make those homes. Why is government asking that within the same complex make those homes? Because just to ensure that things happen promptly and right there. And the expertise of the private sector is channelized. At times, taking a longer route and indirect route, there is loss of efficiency. So, which is something government is anyway doing. So this was an additional, strategy. Then the third tier strategy is that redevelopment. Because these policies have come into, they are being implemented with greater vigor in the last 10-15 years. But you've seen that in almost all urban centers of India, tier 1 and even tier 2, the service class people who are mostly migrants, the policies were not so robust that these poor people would make home unauthorized settlements,
Okay.
which are also termed as slums. And since urban centers needed these people to work, authorities also knowingly turned a blind eye to land encroachment and these slums coming up, because what's the alternative? Because the city needs these people, so it was a selfish kind of give and take. But then after a while, as India is modernizing, these slums have their own set of problems, even also for the inhabitants, but also for the rest of the city. Because they're unregulated and hygiene and disease and crime. So, and nobody owns the piece of land; they're just squatting on the piece of land. So, government is now working, and many states and big cities have already implemented the policy of redevelopment. So, for example, a big slum in Bombay, it has, Bombay real estate is so expensive. Mostly, if a developer were to make homes on a parcel of land, they will probably go 50, 60 stories high and do higher density development. But in a slum, at most you have ground plus first.
Right.
So land is such a precious resource and it's not being optimally utilized.
Right.
So, for example, Bombay municipal authorities come out with the redevelopment scheme. Many other states have, but let's take this as a case study, where a developer will be given the rights to develop a slum.
Okay.
So, all the people who are sitting on the slum, they will be given organized homes by the developer.
Okay.
Developer will also pay them some incentive for the wait period, because for them, these people to vacate the homes and then reoccupy them when they're ready will take some time. So there's some incentive given to them to take homes on rent in the interim period.
Right.
So developer makes them modern homes with all amenities. In lieu of it, developer gets the right to develop usual normal homes which can market and make a profit.
Okay.
So it takes care of many things at one time. It's financially viable for the, because otherwise for government agencies to implement it directly, it's not easy. There are many legal issues involved and government, so this is being very effective. So I think as time goes by, many other cities are going to adopt this. It's a win-win for all. So yes, like I said, it's a very nice topic that you picked up for your research, particularly so in India, where it's such a big problem.
Right. At what stage do developers get involved with these projects?
So it depends. Like if you talk about the state of Haryana, as soon as I get a license for developing a residential township, whether it's high-rise apartments or a low-rise development plots, I have to commit to the government that 15% of the homes that I make for selling in the market, I'll make for the economically weaker section. Okay. So I am involved in that commitment right from the time I'm given permission to do the project. Okay. Then Haryana government went further up. They thought of more strategies. They have recently come out about 7-8 years ago with a policy called affordable housing policy, where small 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 1 unit, 1, 2 and 3 bedroom units were made and actually sold at a fixed price, which was fixed by the government. Okay. Government prescribed the price that the 3-bedroom will be sold for this price, 2 for this price. The price was fixed. The developer had to work backward, and government also, to ensure the developer would make a decent profit, at the same time be able to give within the same price. Government also sat down with the developers and gave them relief in the areas I just told you. Right. So that's the affordable housing policy. Okay. Then the commitment, like I told you, if you want to do housing, so that's how we get involved. And then the redevelopment thing, I mean, a lot of developers now, they're specialized developers, or the existing developers have opened divisions which are looking for redevelopment proposals. Right. So government will come out with a proposal. This is this huge slum spread over 50-60 acres. We commit for it. Okay. And so this is how.
Right. What are your opinions about the already existing EWS policies?
I think its government also has a learning curve, and I think so far it has done a lot of good. The existing policies have done a lot of good. Hundreds or thousands of homes have been delivered. Right. Where before these policies were implemented, things were very haphazard. There was no this thing. Even if you say at the government level, each city has its own development authority.
Okay.
So there's always a mix of government doing some development and the private sector doing some development. For example, if you study the case of New Delhi, so there was a Delhi Development Authority.
Okay.
They would always come out with housing projects for all three categories called LIG, lower income group, middle income group, and HIG, higher income.
Right.
So they also, under the social obligation, these development authorities would come out with scheme housing for the lower income group.
Okay.
And lower income group housing would be sold at no profit, no loss. Slightly more profit in MIG and HIG government would. So the HIG people would kind of subsidize the LIG housing.
Right.
That's
Okay.
how it works.
How do you incorporate the feedback on the EWS rats that the residents are given?
You see, what I feel is that the policy has to be more pragmatic, in the sense that EWS right now, 200 square feet is not enough to be a dwelling unit.
Okay.
You know, so maybe government can relook at it, make it slightly more livable in terms of sizing.
Right.
That's what I feel.
Okay.
That's one aspect, and otherwise, I think affordable housing. Then they addressed it in the affordable housing scheme, where they had 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom homes, which were good enough for a family. But the EWS policy was only a 200 square feet room, which is not good enough for a nuclear family.
Right. And finally, for my last question, how long does it take for the EWS rats to become functional?
Well, the problem is that it depends. You know, for example, in a high-rise residential condo, it could take about 4 to 5 years for these to get stick, because the developer has to do the entire development of his high-rise condos.
Right.
Also simultaneously do the EWS.
Okay.
So all the entire project is delivered at the same time.
Right.
So it usually has a gestation period of 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
But if you talk about Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, I think the benefits accrue within a matter of months. So because typically people who are availing these incentives under the schemes of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and various state yojanas, typically they do low-rise housing on the lots of land they already own. And low-rise housing on the repair of some existing. So they will have a house with a kacha roof. They want to make it pakka and have 2 more roofs on the top.
Right.
So those benefits accrue faster.
Right.
That's what.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for your time, sir.
But I would like to add one more thing which I feel the government should start doing.
Right.
You see, the problem is that there is a limit up to which economically weaker section can be can be accommodated within the city itself, the urban centers. You know, we have these policies, but if we have to touch the subject in a much bigger way, then I feel what government should do is they should identify zones on the outskirts of the city, for example, outskirts of Gurgaon, and have settlements, larger settlements, which are, because the land will be cheaper there.
Okay.
And have much larger settlements for the economically weaker section.
Okay.
Much larger settlements, and developers can be roped in, giving the similar incentives as affordable housing, which came in within the city centers. One thing which needs to be taken care of, why these schemes usually don't work when you try to offer economically weaker section housing on the outskirts, because the area of livelihood is in the cities, and they actually don't want to go to the outskirts because they can't afford to commute.
Right.
It's the time factor, and also the cost of commuting.
Right.
So government should address the commuting part. If the government addresses the commuting part, then the problem can be addressed in a much bigger scale. But then you can have much bigger settlements on the outskirts.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Real estate channel partners play a crucial role in buying, selling, renting, and leasing of a particular property. They act as intermediate agents between buyers and sellers, tenants and landlords, and they help navigate complexities of the real estate transactions. Today, we have Mr. Jitendra Yadav from Milestone Reality, who helps in the sales of the EWS. मेरा पहला क्वेश्चन है कि आप कितने familiar हैं EWS गवर्नमेंट की policies से?
We are very well familiar about this policy. It is EWS. Specifically, it is called Economic Weaker Section Policy. Under this, the economically disadvantaged families are given the support and assistance by the Haryana government so that they can have their own houses under the PM Awas Yojana, which was launched in 2015 by Narendra Modi ji government. So almost I think everybody is aware about this policy very well. Specifically the people, those who are in the real estate.
Okay. My next question is, in your opinion, are the current EWS policies effective? Why or why not?
I think it is almost effective since its launch. The reason being because it gives a boost to the families, those who are having a annual income of less than 3 lakh rupees. So those are assisted and facilitated by Haryana government, and the people, those who are like servants or maids, those do not have their own homes in Gurgaon. It is a very costly city, so government has facilitated them by this policy. So and these are available at very cheap rates.
Okay.
So there are certain eligibility criteria. At least 3 lakh income is the basic threshold for this to avail this scheme. So the income of a particular family shall be less than 3 lakh rupees, and I think most of the people in our country, the population of such kind of people is on very high side, so they can avail their own house under this scheme.
Okay. My next question is, what services do you provide specifically with the EWS that are there in India?
We as a channel partner do make aware to the people, those who are seeking such type of informations, and those who are seeking for the houses which are of low budget. So we do publicize the information in the market via few marketing channels, and even government also publish the information regarding this policy. If somewhere is the EWS scheme in a particular society is coming up, so government do publish in the newspaper, and they make aware to all the people of the particular state. And even we as a channel also do call to our customers, prospective customers, and we also circulate the information in our network. So these are basic ways. However, there are multiple ways. If those are required, then we do them. Otherwise, the number of units are very less. So by word of mouth, it is very easy. People issues or come to put their applications.
My next question is, do you believe that property dealers are adequately recognized and supported by the government in the context of the EWS housing schemes?
Specifically, if we talk about channel partners, so Haryana government has a balanced way to support them. Not specifically they are focusing on channel partners, those who are in the job of facilitating EWS schemes. Government just make us aware by simply publishing information on the newspaper. That is a simple way of government to assist us.
Okay.
Not to focus more on the channel partners specifically for this segment.
How do you identify potential beneficiaries for EWS housing?
We do identify the potential buyers and candidates for this scheme. There are 2-3 ways. One is that we are in touch with the developers when they are they have launched some residential projects. So since starting, we are in touch with the developers. So just before receiving the occupation certificate, 4 to 5 months before, so they tell us we are coming up with few EWS apartments in this particular society. So that is one way of getting the information regarding this scheme. And another way is that the government also publicize the news in the newspaper or maybe in local electronic media. So that is the second way. And after publishing this information that this particular scheme is coming, so there are certain eligibility criteria for the candidates. Those who are eligible will be eligible for this scheme, that they must not have the income more than 3 lakh rupees per annum, and apart from this, they must be the resident of Haryana. They shall the domicile shall be of Haryana, and apart from this, that there are few other regions which are very clearly laid down in that particular scheme, which are launched in the newspaper. So most of the things are very clear, and even all the informations are given on the town and country planning department. So people can go there, can visit there, and then they can identify that who are the eligibles and who are not. So these are the most of the way.
Okay. My next question is, what challenges do you face while dealing with the EWS housing schemes?
The reason, if I talk about, so as a channel partner, that most of the channel partners are not working for this particular scheme or for this segment, because as a channel, if I talk about, because most of the channel partners think they do earn very less income if they are particularly in this particular business. So, but still, if I have few known in my family or in my friends' family, those who are economically weak, so that is the way then we can assist them, or we can tell them this particular scheme is coming there.
Okay. How do you educate the potential beneficiaries about EWS housing schemes?
By word of mouth, and if they are in my known. Otherwise, specifically, we do not do any marketing for this segment.
Okay.
It's only word of mouth,
Okay.
or in my network, or to my known, if someone is there.
Okay. Can you share a success story where your assistance has significantly helped an EWS beneficiary?
Yes, of course. I had few examples, but out of all, I can just explain you one. That in my neighbor there was a driver, so he was not aware about this scheme. So I just simply made him educated about this EWS scheme, that some apartments are coming under EWS category. So he said he doesn't know about this scheme. So I made him educated. Then he was very excited. So however, we checked all the eligibility checks regarding this scheme, whether he is eligible or not. So then we checked all these things. Then we found it is okay. So we applied his application, and fortunately and luckily we got the allotment for that particular person of this particular under this particular scheme for a particular apartment. So he was very happy at that time. However, he managed to make the payment of this apartment with his family members, his friends. Anyhow, he managed all the funds, and today he is very happy, because after some time he sold off that property at a particular price. So, and that price was he sold on the purchase price and the selling price, there was huge gap. It was 5 times or 10 times approximately. So he made good profit. So, and he, just because of this reason, he also suggested his same kind of friends in his relation, in his network. So this way I helped.
Okay. My next question is, how can the government improve the implementation of the EWS housing schemes and to make them more accessible?
If we talk about government's initiatives to make the awareness in general public regarding this scheme, government has taken up many steps. They keep on publishing very frequently in newspapers or via electronic media, and even they also have their website. So on that websites they do publish all the relevant information time to time regarding this scheme.
Okay. So coming to my last and final question, what additional support do you think property dealers need from the government to better the facilities that are already there with the EWS?
If we talk about as a channel partner support by the government, I think government must educate to the channel partners regarding this scheme time to time. Either of the way they feel more convenient, more better. So, or few training programs regarding this they must start, or few events they can start regarding this, or even they can have some educational program regarding this.
Okay.
So these are few basic support we need as a channel from the government side. So I think in rest of the areas channel partners are well sufficient or eligible. They can further take up the actions. They are so much eligible. So these are the basic steps shall be taken by the government.
That will be all from my side. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. This is very
Thank
helpful.
you. Thank you.
The EWS in India is a category for individuals and families with low-level incomes less than 8 lakhs who do not belong to the SC, ST or OBC categories. The government has taken a few steps to help them. For example, the reservation in education, reservation in healthcare, affordable housing, public distribution system, midday meal scheme and subsidized healthcare. Today we have an EWS aspirant with us. Thank you for coming, हिमा दीदी. मैं आपसे कुछ प्रश्न पूछना चाहती हूँ. आपको पता है EWS क्या होता है?
हाँ.
अच्छा. आपके पास EWS का सर्टिफिकेट है जो गवर्नमेंट ने दिया? आपको क्या समझ आता है कि अगर कोई पॉलिसी या कुछ गवर्नमेंट ने दी है तो वो आपकी मदद करता है? आपने कभी उसका इस्तेमाल करा है, जैसे कि अगर कोई भूकंप या कुछ आ जाए और कुछ घर का जैसे टूट जाए तो गवर्नमेंट आपको आके मदद करती है या कुछ ऐसा कभी हुआ है?
नहीं, ऐसा तो कुछ हुआ नहीं.
और कोई मुश्किलें आती हैं, जैसे अभी अगर बहुत सारी बारिश हो गई तो पानी अगर सामने इकट्ठा हो गया तो ऐसी कोई और मुश्किलें आती हैं?
पानी तो भर जाता है, कच्ची गलियां हैं तो लाइट वाइट में दिक्कत होती है.
आपको पता है कोई और पॉलिसीज जो गवर्नमेंट ने बनवाई है?
राशन कार्ड है, मेडिकल कार्ड बनवाया हुआ है, प्लॉट के लिए जो फॉर्म भरे थे उसका आज तक कुछ आया नहीं, तो ऐसा नहीं भरे हुए.
Thank you very much. Now we have the second EWS user, लक्सीना दीदी. मैं आपसे कुछ प्रश्न पूछना चाहती हूँ. पहला प्रश्न है कि आपको पता है EWS क्या होता है?
हाँ जी, सोसाइटी, हमारी जो सोसाइटी है.
और आपके पास कोई EWS का सर्टिफिकेट है?
हाँ जी है, सोसाइटी के कार्ड बना हुआ है.
अच्छा. और आपको क्या समझ आता है कि जैसे सरकार ने बनाई हुई है पॉलिसीज, तो आपको उन पॉलिसी से क्या पता चलता है?
ऐसा कुछ है नहीं हमारे लिए.
अच्छा. और आपके पास कोई समस्या आती है, जैसे अगर बहुत सारी बरसात हो गई और पानी अगर इकट्ठा हो गया तो क्या करते हो आप?
हाँ जी, बरसात में तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम होते हैं. बारिश से जैसे कि रास्ते में बहुत वो होते हैं, भर जाते हैं, पानी
अच्छा
इकट्ठा हो जाते हैं, तो
अच्छा.
जाने आने में बहुत प्रॉब्लम होते हैं.
अच्छा. और आपके पास कोई EWS का कार्ड है?
हाँ जी है.
और आपको पता है कि वो कैसे बनता है, सरकार ने क्या बनता है?
हाँ जी, वो सोसाइटी से फॉर्म देते हैं, फिर उसको भर के पुलिस वेरिफिकेशन करके फिर जमा करना होता है, फिर वो दे देते हैं हमें.
अच्छा, ठीक है. थैंक यू फॉर योर टाइम.
वेलकम.
Architects play a professional role in designing buildings and other structures, integrating both artistic and technical aspects to create a functional, safe, and aesthetically pleasing environments. Today, I have Mr. Gurmeet Shingari, sir, who is the managing director at ACPL. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thank you, Ridhima.
So, I would like to ask you a few questions based on the EWS. The first question being, can you describe the typical construction process for EWS housing projects?
Ridhima, EWS is basically called a project for economically weaker section people. In terms of construction technology, the process is the conventional process of RCC, brickwork, and the normal methodology of construction. So, if you really want to ask me what is the construction process, it's the basic, straightforward civil construction of process in which we use RCC, cement, steel, construction materials, and all.
Okay. What stages are involved from planning to the completion of?
Initially, the EWS format is predefined by the government that we have to give them a 25 square meter space, which should have a small living area, a sleeping zone, a small kitchen, and a toilet zone for them to work on, plus a balcony. The main important factor remains from the government is that one, it should not exceed the area. Secondly, it should be also be naturally cross ventilated so that they have all their needs to be fulfilled. That is the only planning criteria which is predefined by the government.
Okay. What materials and construction methods are commonly used?
Commonly used is RCC and brickwork, which is used in this, and for the external finish, plain plaster with paint over there. That's a common construction process which is done. Yeah.
How do construction norms for EWS housing differ from those than other normal residential plots?
Normal residential, you do not have a top cap of making the size of the apartment. Whereas in economically weaker section, they have capped the total overall size of the apartment or the size of the unit, which is basically 25 to 28 square meter, which is approximately 300 square feet. So that is a limitation by the government that we can't exceed that area.
Okay. What specific regulations that must be followed?
One, it is preferred that the building, if it is exceeding a height of 15 meter, it will follow all the fire regulations which are as per the norms, wherein you have to give a firefighting equipments and everything for doing a high-rise building. The norms are absolutely same as for a normal conventional group housing.
Okay. Any unique challenges that you faced associated with these norms?
It's difficult to create a normal cross-ventilated unit for economically weaker section, because as a developer we want to fit in them as small place as possible so that it doesn't eat up into the saleable FSI of the FSI. I mean to say what the area the builder can sell. So the smallest area which the builder cannot sell, we want to minimize the EWS area for that. Secondly, we want keeping the cost construction as low as possible. We prefer them to be low rise. That is the only kind of a restriction what as a developer we face a challenge in designing a EWS.
Okay. What is your take on the effectiveness of the approved government architecture for the EWS housing?
It's a tricky process wherein the government wants to do an allotment themselves, wherein they don't get misused from a person who doesn't belong to economically weaker section. The main challenge comes is the kind of people who generally apply through a lottery system do not get an apartment due to the various processes of the department. That's the main challenge what we face.
Okay. What improvements would you suggest?
The policy should become more open-minded, wherein the builder should be allowed to sell the EWS, wherein, I feel an outsider who doesn't belong to the community should not be allotted a EWS. At the moment, the outsider can take a EWS apartment. It would have been more effective in case the person who's buying his apartment in the community is allotted the EWS by paying the charge, wherein he can convert them into their own servant quarters or for a domestic help. I feel that would be a kind of a regulation improvement which is required.
What are the most common types of illegal construction activities you have observed in EWS housing?
People like to, because the 300 square feet is a really small area, people like to encroach upon their balconies and start covering them to gain more area. That's the most commonly seen problem in EWS apartments today.
Okay. What impact does this illegal construction have on safety and integrity of EWS housing?
The moment you stop a cross ventilation, the entire natural ventilation gets stopped. The people don't get a natural light. Yes, it reflects on the health and creates a hazard on the living of the person as well.
How do you think the authorities should address this issue of illegal construction in EWS housing?
They should not allow. This should be very strictly tackled. Illegal construction should not be allowed in any kind of a property. That's the main thing. The authority needs to be having more teeth and regulatory for that.
How is the electricity load calculated and granted for EWS housing projects?
The electricity load is basically on a per square feet basis. And in that per square feet basis, the electricity load is given to a individual dwelling for doing his normal electrification for kitchens, bathrooms, and a living area.
Okay. My next question is, what factors are considered in determining the load?
In the load?
Yeah.
Is the electrical load?
Yeah.
You mean to say the electrical load of the apartment?
Yeah.
The electrical load is according to the usage of the building. Since it's a residential, a low domestic load is always allowed.
Okay.
So around 4 kilowatt per square feet is the tentative load which is given to a EWS unit.
What risks are associated with the misuse or overuse of electricity in the EWS housing?
The moment you overuse the electricity, the cable and the circuit is not designed accordingly, and they may pose a very serious threat on the electrical system.
How can enforcement or consequences be improved if something is not being followed?
The regulatory have to be made very strict for stopping any kind of violation, illegal construction, or load enhancement or misuse of a EWS unit.
What checks and balances are in place in case of any misuse?
Periodic, the RW has to be very strong to report any misuse. They should not allow any kind of outsider to misuse or convert their apartment into any other commercial use or office use or any misuse which increases the electrical load or has a threat over the kind of residential usage of the EWS. This is my personal opinion.
Sorry. And finally,
this is my personal opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And finally, for my last question, have you encountered any instances of misuse or deviation from the approved architectural plans?
In my projects, we haven't noticed them, but in the overall scenario where the older construction is there, where the RW is not very strong, yes, we have noticed a lot of misuse there.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for your time. This was very, very...
Thank you, Ridhima. It was pleasure speaking with you.
Based on the interviews you have seen, government agencies highlighted the emphasis on policy implementation and resource allocation, but noted significant challenges with bureaucratic delays and insufficient coordination between different levels of government. Housing development authorities discussed their struggles with maintaining construction quality and meeting deadlines, pointing out the need for better project monitoring and accountability. Something that you as viewers can do is spread awareness about different policies and give information to the EWS. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed.